Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Empowered Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Monos. Today's guest is Hunter Saffell. Hunter is a jack of all trades. If you follow his page, you'll see him doing just about anything and everything. Hunter, if you don't mind telling us how you got into training, your athletic background, all that stuff, what you do now, please share your background.
Yeah. So for me, first off, thanks for having me on. It's pretty cool that someone from a completely different state stumbled upon my fitness page and reached out to me. So I think that's really cool, and it's a privilege to be on the podcast.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to following your podcast and all that too. So, but for me, I'm sure just like most strength coaches, man, I got into it because I was a pretty mediocre athlete growing up. Of course, around like my hometown, it seemed like I was the dude. I played multiple sports growing up. Basketball was my passion. I played JUCO, but low-level JUCO basketball for a couple years. Never really grew up lifting weights. Never was in the performance mindset. Never did any of that stuff. I just spent a lot of time in the gym. It was just get shots up, get reps up, and that was pretty much it. I'll never forget my first meeting with my coach in JUCO, and he said, "Look, you're here because you can shoot the ball, but until you learn how to defend, you get bigger, you get faster, you get stronger, you're not going to see the court." It's like, we're here. You're a little boy amongst men pretty much. And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. I'm 6'2", 160 pounds. I was a little scrawny dude at the time trying to play college basketball. So I started, all that to say, I started lifting in college. I didn't lift before that. And I got into fitness because I call him my trainer at JUCO, but if you've ever been around the JUCO life, it's like a volunteer, the rec center guy who's in there just making sure everybody's wiping down equipment. His name is Tommy, but Tommy was a bodybuilder. Tommy was all into Arnold and that bodybuilding style of training. And he and I just connected on just working hard. And so I would lift with the team. Tommy would write workouts for us, and I would lift with the team, but then I would stay after and just do his workouts with him. And so I got into all of that. I got into lifting and I got into fitness from college basketball. I started seeing some pretty quick gains. And I'd gained 20 pounds before Christmas break. And not just gains, but strength gains, size gains, but then also just a ton of confidence in myself so I became a whole new basketball player just because I had this confidence of man, I've gotten bigger, I've gotten stronger. I can bang with the guys down low and I'm not going to get hurt or anything like that. I struggled with injuries all growing up and never did anything about it. And so when I realized how much the weight room was actually helping me, I started wanting to kind of pursue something in that field. So after basketball, I transferred to Arkansas State in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where I pursued an exercise science degree. And I thought I wanted to go into sports medicine and be a therapist. I think that was a pretty common route. And I would say a lot of strength coaches probably had an interest in that as well at some point. But yeah, I pursued that. I got all the way into my final semester of where I needed to apply for PT school, and it was I think I would rather just train people. I was working out in the fitness center at Arkansas State on my own. I had buddies I was lifting with, just going through the typical bodybuilding splits and stuff like that. And I seemed to, without anybody actually asking, I just seemed to lead sessions with buddies. It was just a natural knack to just pick the exercises, make the programming myself, see what worked, what we liked, what we didn't like. I was doing personal research online, bodybuilding.com forums and T Nation forums, and using their workouts on us. And I realized maybe I should just go into training. I love athletics. I love sports. I could see myself as a strength coach. And so, like I said, that PT application was due in February, and I decided in January that I was yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I think I want to just train people. At the end of that semester, I got an internship at actually the place where I'm working now. It's called St. Bernard Sports Training. I interned there for my undergrad degree, ended up getting a job from that internship. I worked there all through my graduate school, got a master's degree while working there as well in exercise science. And then I was working part-time then I started working full-time, and then I just took over the entire program. And so now that they hired me out of grad school, I don't want to say it's my program. It's technically, I'm employed by the hospital that's in our area. It's called St. Bernard's, but the Health and Wellness Institute where I run my program is where I'm at. And so pretty much they gave it to me. They're it's your baby, run this program. And so I got into training that way, and I've been doing it since, gosh, I took it over in 2016, so, full-time for 10 years, part-time for a little over 12 years now, so
That's awesome, dude. So I want to go back a little bit to like the beginning, and I think it's cool that like we definitely have a similar story in the beginning. I'm still, not huge and jacked like you are, but what I was gonna say is that like you get kind of like that early momentum with training. You're like, man, this kind of works. You're talking
yeah,
about the confidence and all that stuff, and then people just like run with it. And there's something to be said about you're talking about bodybuilding as an athlete, and there's this huge thing sometimes on the internet where people overcomplicate training and like, oh, bodybuilding is not optimal for sports performance and all that stuff. It may not be, but when you're 6'2" and 160 pounds, putting on a little muscle is going to help your athletic performance. Gaining strength, becoming more resilient, adding confidence, like those are all wonderful things. Um, so I think it's kind of a lazy argument. So there may be better and worse ways to train for athletic performance, but
yeah,
especially with like a beginner training age when it comes to the weight room and all that stuff, get strong, get jacked. Those 2
yep,
things will serve you so well. You don't need to worry about joint angle specific or VBT or all these crazy, like, fancy things. If you're like a wet noodle, put on a little bit of muscle, put on a little bit of strength, it does a lot of good. And as
yeah,
far as the confidence thing, like, that's really powerful and that's really true. My wife was a All-American in soccer, and 2 of her best years in college came after she did, like, a full summer of, like, strength and conditioning at a good facility, in our area, and then she would just go and, like, on the field, nobody could touch her. And,
yeah,
like, yes, she would be that step quicker, yeah, she'd be that little bit fitter and all that stuff, but, like, it wouldn't be as sizable an athletic difference as one might assume, and, like, the technical difference didn't go anywhere, but maybe she tries a shot from 35 yards that maybe she wouldn't have tried the season without that strength and conditioning just because she has a
yeah,
bit of confidence. And so that's the thing that sometimes people neglect too is like they're all connected. Your like mental health, your physical health, all those things, confidence, strength, look good, feel good, right? Especially for basketball players, you wear like sleeveless. Yeah,
100%, dude.
it's huge. But then yeah, you're talking about how it helped with injuries. I imagine it helped with your performance. Like people will say that bodybuilders aren't athletic. And it's like, yeah, if you look at elite bodybuilders who only do bodybuilding all the time, yes, because they're missing the sport aspect. But if you're still playing a sport as much as a college athlete would play the sport, you're still going to be sprinting and cutting and jumping and like getting endurance and all that stuff coordination. So if anybody's listening and they're thinking, what is the best way to do it? What's optimal? You talked about like bodybuilding.com and T Nation and all that. I would, as a 13-year-old, be like going on these websites, articles, things I didn't understand at all. I'm like, man, this is the secret. If I just do this one exercise, my biceps will blow up.
Yeah.
When like, at the end of the day, is just train super hard, train consistently, take a nap, eat a sandwich. That'll do a lot of good for you. So yeah, I
Dude,
appreciate
yes.
you talking about that.
100%, yeah, and I remember as simple as, like, I was obviously a good enough athlete to play at the JUCO level, so, like, I
Mhm.
wasn't, like, lacking in athleticism. It was about the building the capacity to just unleash that athleticism, and, like,
Mhm.
once I got stronger and I built this, like, confidence, I was, like I went from never even trying to, like, dunk a basketball to, like, dunking in I never dunked in a game, like, I'm not that confident, but I was dunking in practice all the time, and I was jumping with, like, big guys in games, it's like guys are going up for a layup or a dunk, and it's like this little scrawny white dude now is, like, jumping with these dudes and meeting them at the rim and different things, and it's like I went from if people from my hometown would have watched me play in college basketball, they would have been like, "He's scoring a lot less, but he looks like a totally different player," and it was 100% due to the weight room.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously my role changed in basketball. Like I wasn't the all-star anymore, but like it was 100% what happened off the court in the weight room and all the extra work I did there that changed who I was on the court. My wife could, like you mentioned your wife and her being a soccer player. My wife was cross country and track
Uh-huh.
in college as well. That I met her at Arkansas State and she could attest to her most successful season as a college athlete was when she finally started implementing strength training into her normal routine. And so I just, like you said, like it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be sport specific. It's literally, it's just got to be put some weight on the bar, bend your knees, straighten your knees, pick it
Uh-huh.
up off the ground, whatever you got to do, just add some resistance, some simple movement and just build a resilience to stress so that whenever you're stressed out on the court or you're stressed out on the field, your body's for one ability to withstand that stress, but also recover from that stress on on a regular basis so that you can go out and do it again and
Uh-huh.
stay injury free. Like you said, take a nap, eat a sandwich,
I did.
and recover. I mean, it's that easy.
That was my issue in, like, college, especially is, like, I was like, "Okay, if I'm a fringe player and I wanna be a starter, I have to work harder than everybody." And after college is when I realized I learned general adaptation syndrome. It's stimulus, recovery, adaptation. And I was missing the recovery aspect, and I was way overdoing it in this, stimulus aspect. People talk about overtraining all the time. I feel like few people actually train hard enough to truly overtrain,
100%.
and usually it's under recovering. Whichever
Yes.
one I was doing one or both of them. Do you know I know that because my performance was dipped. I was constantly fatigued. I sleep enough. I wouldn't eat. I felt like I ate a lot, just still not enough. I would have 4 or 5 practices with the team a week, 2 games a week. I would still do 3 or 4 lifts a week, sometimes at like 11 o'clock or midnight, and I'd still do like 3 or 4 skill sessions. It's like, okay, you're doing 3, 4 hours every single day, and you're maybe sleeping 5 hours.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe not the best for like recovery and all that stuff. You're getting way too much. And then also goes into injury, right? Is that like, yes, adding strength and size can make you more resilient. Absolutely. This gets into the conversation of too little exposure to stress or too much exposure to stress for what you're asking yourself to do. And so an example is like if you avoid stress at all costs and stress finds you, you're cooked. And that's what ends up happening with a lot of the like the skinny, scrawny players is like, okay, say you crash into a bigger guy, you're cooked, right? And it's not going to hurt them
100%.
because
Yeah.
they can tolerate way more stress than you can tolerate and they can produce more force than you can produce. And you just play the simple maths of that. That's how it works out. But then if you look at the other side, you can technically do too much. A simple concept is, like, if someone gets tennis elbow because they play way too much tennis for what they're capable of, or like golfer's elbow or jumper's knee. Jumper's knee, for
Yeah.
example, is you're just running and jumping way more than your tendon is capable of tolerating at that point in time.
Yep.
Solution is just reduce the playing volume, increase the capacity. That's to me one of the most important things of becoming a more skillful player is one, you can express the skill more efficiently with more force production capabilities. Not trying to use big words, but two, you can survive more sport practice and skills practice. So it's just like, I don't understand why some people are like, nah, man, I'm allergic to the weight room. Let me just shoot the ball all the time. On the flip side, you can be a bodybuilder who's super uncoordinated. Just do both. Do you know what I mean? Play your sport a lot and then train so that you can play your sport better and more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and for me, I'm sure we'll get into this a lot more later in this episode here, but,
Um,
like, when I started lifting and stopped playing sports, my mind was
mhm,
so focused on lifting that I didn't wanna do anything to, like, ruin my gains, and, it took me a long time of being in the weight room and training people to realize that, like, I was a hybrid athlete in college. I
mhm,
was practicing, I was shooting, I was running hills, I was lifting 2 to 3 times a week, like, I was combining multiple aspects of
right.
fitness on a regular basis to improve my performance before I was ever a hybrid athlete. Hybrid athletes, like, I mean, it's a trendy term right now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something that like I label myself as because people like to see that because it's trendy. But like all athletes are hybrid athletes if they're
Mhm,
strength training,
mhm,
because their sport involves the conditioning or some sort of explosive or endurance type movements.
mhm,
And they're adding the weight room. So like I was doing that before, and that's when I saw my most gains. Like obviously most of those were newbie gains, but it's like I was still continuing to see performance ticks
mhm,
and strength gains, all those things, while what I thought was doing the thing or later on I thought was doing the things that were killing my gains
mhm.
and that I was already doing those things and I was still seeing gains. So anyways, it's like having that mindset shift
Yeah.
later in life and realizing that like as long as I have this capacity to like and as long as I'm fueling and
Mhm,
recovering and sleeping, like I can perform and do multiple things as long as I enjoy it, and that's kind of where my training is kind of evolved into now is like again, we'll get into this. I don't want to like derail us too far, but I've just turned into someone who just enjoys training and I can't like get myself to give up a certain aspect of training. So I just try to
mhm,
incorporate a little bit of everything so I don't like
100%.
lose strength in certain movements or lose my ability to perform a certain movement or skill. So I just make sure it's in my programming at all times. So
We're gonna go down, like, so many different rabbit holes just based off what you said. So
yeah.
one was the hybrid athlete thing, the other one was the, like, killing your gains. I definitely wanna go down that, and then we could talk about, like, the training style and, like, jack of all trades. But for the killing your gains thing, uh there's the interference effect. For someone who doesn't know the interference effect, you can't be like the number 1 marathon runner in the world and the number 100-meter sprinter in the world. But man, you can run a really fast marathon and a really fast 100-meter sprint. And I think
Yeah.
people will think that you can only train one stimulus at a time or get one adaptation at a time. That's not true. You just probably can't specialize to the level of being the best in the world. But how much are you willing to sacrifice towards one thing? How much time do you have? How much energy do you have? And yes, you can have adaptations that go slightly in different directions, but sometimes they can actually complement each other. So someone's like cardio kills your gains. It's like, well, I don't know. If you do a bit of cardio, you might get more density in your training sessions or have better recoverability so you can train harder.
There you go.
Like, we
Yes.
have to use a bit of common sense with like, okay, don't overdo it, but also if you underdo it, that's not great either. Your weakest link in the chain will break, keeping you from working on your strengths. If you only have one strength, something else is going to give at some point, right? So I like that you said that. The other thing too was you're talking about like hybrid athlete. That's such a fun term for me because what is it? I've heard people try to give it like strong definitions. Some people define it as like achieving high levels of strength and high levels of cardio. So can you run like a, uh, 3-hour-ish marathon and, like, squat 4 or 500 pounds? You're a hybrid athlete. Sure, but then, like, the guy who's famous for creating it just said, "Can you achieve high levels or at least compete in 2 non-complementary physical adaptations?" So it
Yep.
might be, like, speed and endurance or, but if you said, like, hypertrophy and strength, they're kinda, like, close enough to each other, it's like, maybe that doesn't count. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's an interesting thing. Then somebody else jumps on that and says, "Okay, well, athlete means that you have to compete in a sport." So, like, I'm a combat sports hobbyist. I don't wanna compete right now with the baby. I feel like it'd be the worst time to, snap my MCL again. But it doesn't mean I'm not an athlete if I'm training in a sport. Do I have to compete in a sport? So it's like, there's all these
Yeah.
different at the end of the day, just do it all. Unless you have, like, a super specific goal, just do everything. I find that it just makes you as healthy as possible, and personally, it's the most enjoyable thing because, like, I worried about the killing of the gains thing. I did, Jake Tura's hypertrophy clusters. I don't know if you ever done that program.
Yeah, I haven't done the program, but I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So anyone who's listening, great program. If you're trying to get, like, jacked, do it.
Okay.
But also, are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to make the journey? It's a phase of 8 by 5 for your main movements, and then the next phase is 12 sets. No, it's 10 sets of 4, and then the last phase is 12 sets of 3. 12 sets of 3 really heavy. It is a long day in the gym, and you will be so tired physically, but also, like, your nervous system will be fried too.
For
So,
sure.
I was so cooked from doing that program that, like, I wanted to keep doing sports stuff, and I was like, "Something has to give. I either have to do less hypertrophy clusters." Me personally, to do more sports stuff, I have to do less sports stuff to finish out hypertrophy clusters. I did this program right before my wedding. I can say that I just wanna get more jacked, and it
Yeah.
worked. I had to get, like, a larger shirt size and all that stuff, thanks to Jake
Well,
Turner. But yeah, that's where competing demands comes into play. It's just about how much you divvy up to each thing and can you recover from it. But besides that, you can still work on all these things at once. And so I like that you're talking about multiple qualities because I also feel like jack of all trades, master of none. But the rest of that quote is oftentimes better than a master of one. If I'm just a sprint guy and then I have to go for a long run and I'm winded after 2 minutes, I feel kind of dumb, right? So I'd almost rather be like podium, 3rd place and everything, then, like, number 1 in one thing and then, like, dead last in everything else.
but, like, I also view it as for me, and
Mhm,
I'm not in the 1% of professional athletes who focus on
mhm,
sprinting only. Maybe as a 35-year-old, I wanna be a really elite sprinter, but, like, the odds of that happening are extremely low,
mhm,
and I just don't wanna sacrifice my endurance training. I don't wanna sacrifice my hypertrophy training. I don't wanna sacrifice time in something
mhm,
else, become an elite sprinter when I know my genetic ceiling is
sure,
not gonna make me really an elite sprinter anyways. Like, um, I think the elite sprinters are the people who know pretty early on. Man, I'm using sprinting as an example,
sure, but
but,
that's a great example. Like you
but
said ceiling, your ceiling might be lower than Usain Bolt's floor. So, like,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you wanna
yeah,
be the best people
100%.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I figured that out pretty
right,
early on. It's like, yeah, maybe I can run up and down the basketball court pretty quickly and like ran track and I was not a very good sprinter
right,
naturally. So like I'm not gonna pursue much time and energy into sprinting. And because I didn't enjoy it, like I'm definitely not as I get older gonna invest a lot of time in that.
uh,
And so all of that to say, like most of the people that I work with and talk to are just Gen Pop clients and Gen
mhm,
Pop people who aren't going to be elite in
mhm,
really anything except for maybe their career, like the dentist that I train or whatever. He's an elite dentist, but like he doesn't care
mhm,
about sprinting.
yeah,
So like I don't have to train him to be a sprinter, although I'm going to incorporate sprinting or some sort of footwork or speed training into his training just to make
mhm,
him a well-rounded human. And so like the same qualities I do to myself, it's like I either can regress or change those things to depending on who I'm working with, but I still use that same mindset and that same style of training with everybody because like we said, jack of all trades is to me the best way to train just an overall human. It's like it's
100,
the way that I feel the best, and I feel like it works for everybody that way that I've worked with. That isn't like a sport. There aren't training for a specific goal in the sport, but if I think all that to say is like we figure out pretty early on if we're going to be in that 1% or not,
sure.
and we kind of know without having any sort of genetic testing where our genetic ceiling is going to be. And so it's like, I don't have to focus on sprinting or being a jump guy or whatever on myself to make myself feel as good as I can.
So to go along with that, like, I also think people will figure that out just based off preferences. I think people will pursue things they're good at, and they'll like the things that they're good at. It's almost like this may sound kinda dumb, but like a dog breed. Like, a greyhound will sprint, 'cause a greyhound's
Yeah.
good at sprinting, and they'll like to sprint, they'll be bred for sprinting, and then like a like a dachshund, will like to dig and crawl into little holes and all that stuff. So I feel like
Yeah.
humans are kind of the same in that sense. And it's like I didn't have any one thing that stood out athletically. Let me be good at everything. And then as a soccer player, I was a midfielder because I was never the best dribbler, the best shooter, the best defender, the best any single thing on the team. But I was pretty darn good at all of them.
Yeah.
Just wasn't great, like the best at any one of them. And that's essentially a midfielder's job is you're not supposed to be the best at if you're the forward, you're supposed to be the best at scoring goals. If you're the defender, you're supposed to be the best at defending and blocking shots and clearing the ball and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're saying is important for people to understand. It's like you almost have to do an honest assessment of yourself and then say what's the best path to take. And then even then, everybody has free will. If you don't care about what your strengths are and you still, let's say you wanted to be the number one sprinter in the world, you should still pursue that. You may not get there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's still cool to pursue that. And so that's the thing I kind of tell people is like, anytime someone says like, "Oh, I want this, I want that," so I'll sometimes train like a 50-year-old woman. She'll see someone in a magazine, be like, "I wanna look like that." And I'm like, "Okay, here's like what that person may have had to sacrifice and what they started at, and like this may be worse your situation." I'm not trying to not empower people, that's against my brand,
Yeah.
but I just wanna be honest with them, I'm like, "Is the juice worth the squeeze?" And so
Yeah.
some people, it's like, "I wanna have, like, that slice of pie every single night," and I'm like, "Okay, you can have that slice of pie every night, that's totally cool, I have no problems with it. This might be your ceiling with that lifestyle, but if you're gonna be the person that, like, doesn't enjoy life at all, and you're as miserable as these, like, models are sometimes when they're taking a picture and they, like, hate their lives, but they look really good for a cover of a magazine, then, like, cool." So I think that's what you're talking about is good because a general person, it's almost better to be honest with them and say, like, "Hey, this is what you're capable of, this is what you wanna achieve, blah, blah, blah." And then you just like training from there can be more liberating, I guess, in that sense. Variety is the spice of life, right? Like I get bored doing the same one thing over and over and over again when I do something else. And then I go to the next thing. I can't wait to go back to that first thing, but I just keep getting the bug for all these different things. I don't know if it's the
Yeah.
same for you.
For sure. And like I said, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole. We'll probably get into it later, but that's pretty much how I structure my year's worth of programming
Uh-huh.
is, I train in about 8-week blocks
Uh-huh.
and I pick some specific movements that I want to focus on and then variations of, a power lift or an actual strength movement or whatever. And I'll try to maintain strength in. So just for example, like right now I'm doing like a deadlift block. And so to maintain my bench press, I'm doing incline press. So it's like
Mhm.
the stress is still high, but the intent is a little bit different on the incline press. Anyways, to try to maintain my bench press, I don't want to go down too much of it but all of that to say, but then like in 16 weeks, so like two more 8-week blocks, I'm going to return back to bench
Uh-huh.
press to see if I've maintained my strength, even though I'm in a deadlift block right now, but in 16 weeks, two strength blocks later, I'm going to be back to bench press to see if I maintained bench press strength through different movements, military press or incline or dumbbell pressing or whatever. And that's just kind of how I structure my workouts. And it's like, I do that for a lot of people. It's like, 'cause I always want to come back to
Sure.
what I was trying to do before. So anyways,
That's a good thing too to like explain to people because you can try to like focus on just one thing, make a lot of progress on that one thing. You can focus on everything evenly and make very little progress on all those things. Or you can
yeah,
maintain a bunch of things and focus on one thing, a moderate amount of progress on the one thing while maintaining everything else and cycle through it. That's another strategy that you can totally do.
yeah,
Essentially, you just always have the same amount of pie. You're just slicing it differently every 8 weeks. And I think that's
100%.
just like that's just a good way to do it. And I think that like when it comes to volume and it comes to intensity, I think this is like programs are cool. At the end of the day, like whoop straps, whatever. But like at the end of the day, you got to be a person that like can listen to your body, that can feel like, okay, I got more in the tank, I got less in the tanks. And some people don't know where that is because they don't push hard enough sometimes. So they don't know what their limits are. Sometimes you got to like find that upper limit. And then also like something I'll tell clients if I feel like they're training too soft is like, hey, like 60, 70% effort is still, like, decently challenging, you might still get sore, this, that, the other, but it still might not be enough effort to get anything out of it, any
Mm,
gain. So it's like,
yep.
if you're doing 70% and the gains are 80% hypothetically, you might as well just do 80% and get the gains. Like, you're not gonna feel a huge difference in soreness, but you might notice a difference in terms of progress. So, like,
Yes.
that's it, and then, of course, you don't wanna do too much, but that's finding that balance of what is the most everyone says minimum effective dose. For maintaining minimum effective dose, absolutely, is ideal. For making gains, maximal effective dose. What is the most you can possibly do on something that you can survive and have
Yes.
positive adaptations from? If you go on the wrong side of that, dial it back a little bit. But if you're making gains, keep sending it. Like, I don't like the idea of for the average person, if it's an Olympian that has a 4-week cycle and, like, deloads, cool. For the average person that goes on trips or gets sick or sometimes has to, like, take a step back for this or that, I don't wanna tell someone, "Hey, this 4th week, you're gonna have to take it back," even if you're making crazy gains. Send it until, like, you stall, and then maybe take it back a little bit, and that's like
Yes.
it's like a staircase, like, you find that next step, you get comfortable there, then you make your next jump,
Dude, I love that analogy so much because it's so true. It is so true, man. I just think like it's so important to train yourself
Mhm,
hard, like
mhm,
because you just don't know your limits until you find that limit. Like you just got to continue to train. And like it's so hard to overtrain. And
mhm,
we talked about that earlier. Like people don't like they might feel like they're overtrained, but they really don't know that they're overtrained unless they actually push themselves to that
mhm,
point. And you'll finally know when that point is. A lot of times we just tap out a lot earlier than what we think. And so like you said, like the average human, like we do not need a deload every 4 weeks. It's like
mhm,
we can continue. Like for me, like my deload is typically like the first week of my new training cycle. And it's like we just kind of take a step back and it's like the load is just a little bit different. But like it's not, I don't take a deload as often as most people would think because for
mhm,
one, I'm not a professional athlete and my sport is training. So like that's where I spend most of my time. What I'm doing is not an accessory to something else. I mean, I guess technically my endurance sports, my endurance events are my quote unquote sport and my strength training is an accessory to that. But like to me, it all is encompassed in training.
mhm.
My endurance events, like I program it all together. There's no like priority in any of that unless I have a race that week or my taper involves I'm tapering for an event or something like that. But I love that example of the stair step, man. I think that's perfect.
So I want to talk about the way that you balance because some people may think, "Oh man, I can't be jacked and fit at the same time. I can be strong and fit at the same. I can do all these different things." Uh, and I'm not trying to like make you blush or anything like that, but you're a pretty big dude. You're pretty darn strong and you're pretty darn fit, and like it's a good example to people that can do multiple things. But also, most people wouldn't want to put in the effort that you're doing. Like I don't think people understand probably how hard you have to work and how consistently you have to work and how long
Yeah.
it took to build to the point that you're at now. What does it look like? What does your weekly schedule look like to structure to be able to survive all these different things? How many days a week are you training? How do you divvy it up between the endurance and the strength stuff?
Yeah. So first off, just know that like I have been training for almost 16 years. So
Mhm,
like this base of tolerance to stress has been being built for years. So like
mhm,
people who, I have people all the time that when I started posting more regularly, like, man, you sure are training hard a lot lately, and it's
mhm,
like, bro, you have no idea. Like I've been doing this for years. It's just I
mhm,
just now started putting it out there. And that's not to like toot my own horn or anything. It's just to show that like what I'm putting out there is raw. It's legit what I'm doing,
mhm,
but it didn't just happen. Like I didn't just start training like this and I have this amazing ability to recover from it that nobody else can. Like, cause if some average person came and just started doing my weekly split, it's going to wreck them. It's going to be super hard. It's going to be a lot
mhm,
of stress and they're not going to be able to recover from that. So just know I have plenty of years of trying multiple different programs and training styles. Like I've gone through the strength phases, I've gone through the hypertrophy, the weightlifting, the big weightlifting stuff,
mhm,
the jump only. Like I've done all of the things individually and through that figured out that like, hey, I don't like when I'm in a weightlifting only phase. Like I still
mhm,
want to do my power lifts or whatever. So what my week looks like now, and this all started just a couple years ago when I really started getting into the endurance events
mhm,
because I had a structure where I had like your typical weightlifting split and my body was just so sore all the time that like my legs could not
mhm,
take the endurance events. And so right now what I do is so I lift 4 days a week, sometimes five. Um, but it's pretty much just 4 days a week. And then like depending on what my endurance schedule looks like for the weekly mileage looks like, I might hit a Friday workout. That's just like I call it a bro sesh. It's just me hitting the cable machines, get a pump, whatever.
mhm,
But my Monday lift is what I call push strength, and the focuses are always going to be cleans. And then some sort of upper body push and it's like a horizontal push or a
mhm,
vertical push, whether that's bench press or military press,
mhm,
and then a squat,
mhm,
a lower body squat motion that could be a bilateral or unilateral movement, just depending on what, I talked about those 8 week blocks that I'm in. So it just depends on what block I'm in. So right now I'm in the middle of a back squat. I'm doing back squats and incline presses.
mhm,
That's what I'm in right now on that day. And then some like clean technique. Tuesdays is what I call athletic lower body. And The reason why I put that session there, it's because well, let me just go into my strength program first, and I'll blend the endurance stuff with it. So, like, my athletic lower body, and that's where I include all my sprinting, my jumping, and then I found that, like, I can really overload my legs and build some, like, strength with, like, sled work. I've
Mhm,
gotten into sled work a ton in the last couple years, mainly because it's all concentric movement, so I'm not
mhm,
really, like, sore. Like, obviously, I'm fatigued, but,
mhm,
like, I don't get really sore, so, like, my legs might be a little sore
mhm,
from the squatting the day before, but it allows me to still perform really well on Tuesday in my athletic lower body day because I didn't wreck my legs in the squat the day before. And then, like, I'm not super sore from the sled work, so I'm still able to, like, get some solid work and put out a solid effort on that day. Wednesdays, I do an upper body only day. That's when, like, I'll incorporate some, like, med ball throws, like my upper plyometrics,
mhm,
things like that. So, like, med ball throws or explosive push-ups, things like that, and then just get, like, a pump. It's typically a little bit more push focused,
mhm,
but I incorporate a little bit of everything. That's where I just try to get the pump. Thursday is my pull strength day. That will be like snatches. I don't spend a ton of time like on like snatch technique. Like I said, I went through an entire like year's worth of weightlifting phase. So it's really just like refining the skills of the snatch and
mhm,
the clean on Monday. And then I might go just like build up to a heavy set and do one or two heavy sets, and that's about it. Like, I'm not trying to build a ton of strength there. It's more about just like maintaining the movement within my weekly split.
mhm,
But snatches, then some sort of hinge movement, heavy hinge, whether that's an RDL or a deadlift or whatever, and then a heavy pulling upper body pull.
mhm,
And those are the primaries of the movement or of the day, and then I hit some like accessories afterwards. I incorporate core training within my athletic lower body day
mhm,
and my pull strength day. Um, and then on Fridays, typically Fridays, like I said, that's my bro sesh day. How I incorporate my endurance training within all that. So I program based on like stress management. And that's like, if you've heard of hard days hard, easy days easy,
mhm,
it's all that since my endurance training is mainly running, basically keep my hard days hard. The focus is on my legs
mhm,
essentially. And so, like, my Monday is an easy run, and majority of my strength training is a little bit harder on the upper body. So I mean, obviously, I'll have some squats, but like, I'm not tearing my legs up in the weight room. So, like, it's easy for me to recover from, and mainly because of my training history. And so, I do an easy run on Monday. Paired with my strength training session. My hardest or most intense run of the week is on Tuesday. And that's when I do like my speed training or a track workout or a hill workout, something like that, and that pairs with my athletic lower body day, and that's my hard day. That's the highest stress day I have of the week. Wednesday is the upper body only day in the weight room, so, like,
mhm,
my legs are getting some recovery.
mhm,
If I happen to run, it's typically a really slow, easy recovery run. Like, I'm
mhm.
involved in a run club. My wife got me involved with it. She still runs, and that running social hour for my wife. So, like, she
Yeah,
likes to go catch up with all of her friends and stuff. So if I need some extra miles for the week or whatever based on my plan, I'll go hit up an easy run with them and just talk it up. And, most of the time that's my off day, so I give my legs a complete break, but I might get some like super easy miles, nothing that's going to stress my legs. And typically I just listen to my body. Like, if my legs feel
mhm,
good, I'll go get an easy run in. If not, I'll just take it easy. Thursday is a tempo run, so another little bit harder of a run,
mhm,
lower mileage, but some tempo work with my pull strength day, which I'll do deadlifts or RDLs, so a little bit more stress on the legs. Friday's another easy run. And then depending on how I feel through the weekend or if I have plans or whatever, Saturday or Sunday, I'll do a long run.
mhm,
And that's all dependent on like my if I have a race coming up or where I'm at in my race training block or whatever. But I try not to stress too much on like working that in, but I do try to find time to get a long run in. So that's either I like it to be on Saturday so that Sunday I can take off totally completely. But
mhm.
if I'm pretty sore or tired from the week, I'll take Saturday off and run Sunday.
So there's a lot to talk about there. You talked about the high-low model, which I think people definitely should understand is if you're gonna do as much frequency as you're doing, you can't have high days every single day,
Right.
'cause the body needs time to recover properly. So you can train with high frequency, you just can't train with high intensity and high frequency constantly because that's like a recipe for burning out. And again, like
Yes.
we were talking about, if you do too much, you're not gonna get the adaptations that you're looking for, which ultimately defeats the purpose of all the effort you put in. If the goal is making gains, if it's just fighting your demons, then, go for it. But then on that, you're talking about high-low model, you're talking about a split that sounds pretty specific. There's, like, 2 things I wanna say about it. One, as far as splits, early on, I feel like is a trainer has this issue where it's like, I gotta get all the right answers, not understanding that there's not necessarily a right answer. There may just be better or worse within a given context.
Yeah,
And it's cool because you created a split that works for you. It doesn't mean that that's the right split for everybody or anything like that. It doesn't mean that everybody should copy your split magically or that they'd be able to survive your split or anything like that. It's just like
100%.
the way I almost think about making splits now, which is like such a relief, is I just look at like what my weekly schedule looks like, and then how can I space it out in a way that I think I can best recover from everything. And so like right now, it's 2 to 3 like full body strength days a week, 2 to 3 sport like combat sports days a week, about an hour for each thing. So a total of 6 hours of exercise a week at the most, 4 hours at the least if work gets too busy, the baby too much stress and needs some recovery, and then one mandatory off day no matter what every single week,
Yeah.
just to basically recover and reset and all that stuff. But I mean, I could easily do an upper lower split. I could do a full body split. I could do push pull legs. I could do any kind of split as long as I just say, what are the movements that I want to train,
Yes.
And then, okay, how do I want to split that up? Do I want to put all upper on one day, all on the next day? Do I want to do a bit of everything? And then you just have to ask yourself the question of like, is this a stress that I can recover from, right? Do you like feeling really sore in the upper body, but fresh in the legs? And then you go into the legs next, and it's like for your next workout, it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
feel good. Or you just like having that general kind of soreness everywhere. There's like all these things for people to consider. Like they talk about that. The one thing I really wanted to ask you is running. What is the longest endurance event that you've done? When did you start? And maybe the most important question is why?
Well,
Why endurance? Yeah.
so real quick, I do want to say when it cut as far as like the splits go, excuse me. The whole reason I started that split was I started teaching an adult weightlifting class, an
Okay.
Olympic weightlifting class, and it got to the point where I had such a consistent following in that class that like I started working out with them because I had no other time in the day, and I was
Sure.
like, these guys go hard, like I'm gonna start working out with them. And then selfishly, I started incorporating my own programming when I was
Mhm.
working out with them, and they loved having me in there just because it brought a little bit more intensity to the group.
Mhm.
And now that class is kind of just modeled after whatever I want to do. And like they're my guinea pigs. I experiment on programming because I that's how I do it for myself. It's like what
Mhm.
works for me, or I'm gonna try something. I tried on myself. Well, now that they work out with me, now they're my guinea pigs as well. And so my split probably, if it weren't for that class, which I teach Monday through Thursday, if it weren't for that, my split would probably be a little bit different. So like
Mhm.
back to, what I do may not work for everybody else.
Sure.
That's the only reason why my split is Monday through Thursday, and then I made everything else kind of fall into place based on when that class was offered and what I wanted to be in that class,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So,
Sure.
as far as endurance sports go, the furthest I've gone was last November. I did my first like last man standing type event. This
Mhm.
race wasn't. It was last man standing format. Are you familiar with what last man standing is?
And then the race just keep going until there's only one guy left.
Yeah, so essentially what it is you have it's like a 4.2-mile loop, and you start that loop every hour on the hour until
Mhm.
somebody gives up. And the format for this race was that format up until the 24th hour. And for every person who made it to the 24th hour, that final lap was a race. And so the goal was it was a 100-mile race, and essentially it's like it's you and whoever else makes it to the final loop, and then it's like survive until that point, and then you race. This was my first attempt at anything near that distance, and I learned a lot. I didn't make it all the way to the end. I DNF'd on the 18th lap, which
Mhm.
means I didn't make it back in within that hour on the
Mhm.
18th lap. So I made it 75 miles, like 75 and a half miles. But my last lap was a lot of walking. I mean,
Uh-huh.
4 miles in an hour, like I was not running very much at all. But that's the furthest I've gone, 75 miles.
Crazy.
It was a huge learning experience for me because there's a lot more to just being strong in an event like that, like a lot of strategy in your fueling
Mhm.
and like your time out on the course versus like at your base camp where you are getting your fuel and nutrition and all that. I got into endurance sports. I think that was what were all your questions? Like, how far have I gone?
Yeah, yeah. The main thing was like, why? Why? Well, when did you start? And then like, why? Why did you start? Like
Yeah.
75
So
miles in hours is crazy, dude.
yeah, man. So I'm going for the redemption race this year.
Okay.
I'm making it to. I may not win the thing, but I got second place, so it was just down to me and one other guy
Awesome.
for a little over 7 hours. It's a pretty small event. It's a local guy puts it
Uh-huh.
on, and so it's not a very popular event around here. Endurance
Mhm.
training for one is not very popular around here, so it wasn't a very big event, but there was a lot of pressure. It was just me and him out there,
Mhm.
and so I tapped out first, but um, I started endurance training in 20 let me think, 2022.
Okay.
So my wife, like I said, she's a cross country and track athlete. I followed her around through college, watching her race. Never had any kind of desire to run. Always told her running was punishment because for me in basketball, that's what it was. And then she started running half marathons and marathons afterwards. And I still did not have a desire to train, but I went and watched. She qualified for the Boston Marathon,
Okay.
and which, if for anybody who isn't familiar, like that's a pretty there's the world major marathons, and it's a pretty elite company if you can qualify for it. A lot of people can get in it from like a lottery or whatever, but
Mhm.
like qualifying for it is a big deal. And so she qualified for the marathon. She's a very elite runner, and even through her training process of going to Boston, like I didn't really care about it, but like when I got to Boston and just got around the community of people and watched that race, I was like, holy cow, like I really want to do one of these races. So
Mhm.
I told her, I was like, I want to train for my first marathon. So she ran that in 2021. I signed up for my first marathon in 2022. In July of 2022 is when my training kicked off. And I've pretty much been endurance training consistently since then. I've run 3 marathons. I've done two 24-hour team events. I've actually got one coming up next weekend, a 24-hour team event. And then I've done a few different ultra marathons. So I've done like a 50-mile ultra, a 50K ultra, and then that 75-mile race, and then a handful of like half marathons here and there. So I've gotten some experience, and I'm definitely not like fast by any means. I'm like, you pull up my times, it's not that impressive compared to the field. But the whole reason why I do it is, and I think a lot of people with similar stories to me, there's this itch that I gotta scratch, a competitive itch.
Mhm.
And running to me is something that's and endurance sports in general, like, it's
Mhm.
just something that's so uncomfortable. It's a new sport that I'm continuously learning that's like so I remember how addicted to, like, basketball and baseball I got growing up, and, like, the new sport, it's like you kinda have this success, and golf is the kinda like that for me now. It's like there's these small wins within the learning the sport that kinda keep you coming back, and with running and endurance sports, there's so many small wins and things that you learn about yourself that just kind of get you addicted to it. It's not really like the finish line of these races. It's more like the person you become through the journey of training for it.
Mhm.
And for anybody who's trained for anything hard, it doesn't have to be an endurance sport. Like you kind of learn that about yourself and the importance of just kind of pushing yourself through training and like just stacking days, even though you don't want to show up to train. Like we talked about earlier, training hard and being consistent. Like
Mhm.
that's all endurance training is. It's just showing up every single day, building this huge base to be able to go a long ways. And then on the days you don't want to be there, still show up and do it because it has to be done if you want to complete said race. And so like why I do it, it's for the challenge. It's something that I'm not good at. It's something that I wasn't good at. I didn't want to be good at. But I've just kind of become addicted to the process of it, and being a strength coach, learning how to strength train as an accessory to that.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to give up strength training, and I won't give up strength training. I told my
Mhm.
wife when I was first training for my marathon that like if I start losing weight or losing strength, like I'm out. Like I'm not doing this. And she wanted me to run so bad, and I'm like, I'm out. If I'm not gonna get freaking big still, like I'm not that big, but like if I'm losing strength, a little bit of size that I have, like I'm out.
Mhm.
And anyways, and so it's like trying to find where programming can coexist with the endurance training is kind of what I love using myself as the guinea pig for. And it's opened doors for me. Like I've gotten to work with, some high school and college cross country athletes who
Mhm.
have seen what I've been doing and they follow
Mhm.
me on Strava, and they're like, man, I need to get into strength training. And it's like, and I'm not running anywhere close to the speeds that they're running, but
Mhm.
they see that you can do both and it's not going to kill your speed gains or your endurance gains by being in the weight room. And so all that to say, like the why I do it is it's just a challenge for me. It's the continual pursuit of trying to learn how to make it work for myself. And with any other sport of kids that I work with or athletes that I work with, I use the weight room as an accessory to that sport. Now I've found this sport of training, and how can I use my endurance training to help my strength training, and how can I let my strength training help my endurance training? It's just figuring out what I can learn about myself on a regular basis. I think it's super important to just put ourselves within stress to make life easier. If you stress yourself on every single day in training, sometimes that just makes the stressors in life seem a lot less stressful.
There's a lot of directions I can go with that. One of them is the way that you got into it sounds really similar to you. Do you know, Brendan McGuigan?
I
Um,
don't yet.
okay, so you should follow him. His name
Okay.
is Gwiggy Smalls, Guiggy Smalls, like Biggie
Okay.
Smalls
Yep.
on Instagram. Former pro baseball player, really great strength coach, but then, like, being a pitcher as, like, almost as opposite from, like, running a marathon as you can
Yeah.
get, like, sporting demands and all that stuff, and I think his story is that he just, like, watched a friend do a marathon and, like, same thing, got the itch. He was, like, at the race supporting him, and he's like,
Yeah.
"I gotta do one of these things," and I think he said he tried doing a run or something like that, and he, like, didn't do very well, and he was like, "Alright, I hate sucking at something," so he just,
Yeah.
like, stuck to it, and now you have this, big jack strong dude who also runs marathons, and it got into, like, that world and is training other people and all that, qualifying for some big runs as well. The other thing I wanna say is your wife is a dog from the stuff we talked about before recording the podcast. Congrats on your kid and, like,
Yeah.
are you
Thank you.
but then also the qualifying and all that stuff and being a stud athlete. What's her name?
Chelsea.
Chelsea? She's a stud, so shout out Chelsea.
I always say she's the toughest person I know, and now I'm the 3rd strongest person in my family.
Yeah, dude, this thing first of all, beautiful sentiment. I love to hear that. But then, also going along with the running thing, you're talking about, like, doing difficult things, and I like that you said that, like, running was punishment or maybe you weren't the best at it or it was difficult or whatever, but you still went towards for me, like, you're talking about training hard or being in a struggle. I think I wanna do, like, endurance events eventually. Man, if I could do everything, I would. I basically just wanna be like Spider-Man, Batman, John Wick all rolled into one.
Hey, I get it. Yeah. That'd be
It's like,
great.
gymnastics would be awesome and, like, Ninja Warrior and climbing, like, that kind of world, and then, like, right now I'm in the combat sports world, so, like, jujitsu, Muay Thai, and a little bit of, like, MMA, stuff like that. Eventually, I want to start with, like I can do a 5K easy, probably 10K. Half marathon, probably need a bit of training, marathon, and then I wanna start doing, like, triathlon, like, working up the sprint events and increasing the distances. I think I
Yeah.
wanna try that in my 40s, like, I have that plan right now, we'll see. I'll revisit this in about a decade. And then,
Yeah.
but, like, there's so many different things that you can do, and it's cool to do all of them and, like, to try a new journey and, like, learn about yourself along the way. But, like, doing hard things, I try to explain to people, like, why I do jujitsu, for example. My second ever session, I got my MCL snapped on a takedown. And, like, people are like, "All right, so you're done with that?" I'm like, "No way am I done with that." I was
Yeah.
like, "I don't wanna fear it." I see how challenging it is. I see, like, the potential benefits. I see the confidence that, like, a black belt has, knowing that almost anybody in the world can't hurt them, right? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
want that. And, like, if the
Yeah.
price is 10 years of brutal training, 15, 20 years brutal training, I'm like, "All right, like, sign me up." And man, it makes you regret it when, like, you're stuck underneath somebody and they're, like, twisting your neck and you can feel it pop, pop, pop. Like,
Oh,
in that moment, you're just like, not so fun." But like you're talking about, sometimes when you're on a run or a long bike ride or you're doing jujitsu or something like that, it's my brother and I had this conversation. There's, like, different types of fun. There's fun during and fun after. So, like basketball, fun during, fun after. You enjoy it during,
mhm.
right? And then there's some things that might be short-term gratification. You might eat, like, a whole pie. Man, I'm having fun. Then you're feeling sick on the toilet. It's like, okay, it's not fun after. Obviously, the things that aren't fun during are fun after, but, like, those really difficult things are not fun during, and for whatever reason, I feel like they're the most gratifying after the fact. Because, like you're talking about, you are challenging yourself, you do feel good about yourself, you're learning about yourself along the way, and I feel like people would be better people if they leaned into difficult things. I also, in the context of combat sports, I feel like there's too many, like, alpha males on the internet that, like, haven't been punched in the teeth before or haven't been, like, submitted by somebody. Like, I used to think, like, maybe have a bit more road rage or, talk big and all that stuff. You get your ass handed to you over and over and over again. Now you're just like, "Okay," like, you gotta dial it back a bit. There's this one guy, I love this story. His name is, Leg Lock Joe, and, my first ever gi class where you wear, like, the uniforms as opposed to, like, shorts and a compression shirt. If your belt falls off in a roll, you just throw it to the side and keep rolling, and he's also, like, 5'8", 140 pounds. He looks like an IT worker and all that stuff. I'm like, "I could handle this guy." He's a purple belt, which is the middle belt, and I'm putting the belt back on. He's like, "You don't have to do that. Let's just finish the roll." And I was like, "Oh, I'll be quick." I take 30 seconds to put it on, and he grabs me by the belt and, like, slams me into the mat and submits me immediately, and I was like, it's just so humbling. It's like, I'm not picking a fight with anybody. I don't know. So, yeah, I think I appreciate you talking about it. I feel like people aren't wired that way, and I feel like I'm not saying you have to do the most difficult thing all the time, and that's the only place you have value, but I don't know, lean into stress, you might feel good, and then, like, lastly, along those lines, like, I think we biologically get endorphins from exercise for a reason. I think it's like
Mhm.
a biological reward for doing something that's good for us, our bodies are meant to move. I think the sedentary lifestyle is, like, so unnatural, and that's why you see depression and, all these, like, diseases are preventable, all that stuff. So I feel like it's almost like this is a terrible analogy and it's inappropriate. And I know my dad's gonna listen, be like, "Why did you use this?" But like, if finishing sex and procreation feels so good, it makes people want to do it more. I think that's like a biological reward for like reproduction, for like the survival of the species. To
Yeah.
me, endorphins after running is kind of the same thing. Like we used
Yeah.
to hunt animal herds for miles and miles and miles. I kind of feel like that's part of it. So anyway, sorry, I went down a rabbit hole there, but
No. Are you a reader at all, or do you listen to audiobooks?
audiobooks, yeah.
So, if you haven't, have you listened to The Comfort Crisis?
No, that's cool though. I wanna, yeah.
Okay, so that's another reason why I kinda got into that book. Was recommended to me by a buddy during, 2020.
Uh,
Um, he actually started doing, I'm sure you're familiar with the 75 Hard.
okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
He
The
was, like, on
challenge.
this weight loss journey. He got into
Mhm,
75 Hard. He recommended that book to me, and, a lot of things just kinda resonated with me, and it's like I was already a very active individual, but when I
mhm,
read The Comfort Crisis, it's basically very, very summarized. It's just like we gotta get out of our comfort zones more frequently. We gotta get outside more often, get exposed to extreme temperature changes and things that
mhm,
just make you so uncomfortable because we're stuck on, in houses that are climate controlled. We're stuck on chairs that are comfortable.
mhm,
We're always like, we're looking at our phone, like we're never bored, all these different things, never in our own heads, with our own thoughts. And it just got me thinking, like, I'm very active, but I'm also extremely comfortable and
mhm,
content. And they just kind of, in that book, he just kind of stresses the fact that, like, how important it is to you as your evolution as a human and an adult to get uncomfortable, because we just settle into what's comfortable in life all the time. Like, I come home to my wife, that's comfortable. I sit on my couch and watch my favorite TV show, that's comfortable. I
mhm,
eat my favorite foods. I get on Instagram and look at,
mhm,
whatever. And it's like, I've got to do something uncomfortable. I've got to do
mhm,
something that's hard. And thankfully, I had a strong encourager and somebody who's done it before to help me coach me through it, and that was my
mhm,
wife. And she got me into running, and that's just been my uncomfortable thing. And like I said, you just learn a lot about yourself when
mhm.
you're at mile 20 in a marathon and you really want to quit and your calves are cramping, and it's like, it's easy just to just tap out right here and just be
Mhm,
done, or I could finish this race and do something hard and get that endorphin pump, and that addicting feeling of that sense of accomplishment
mhm.
whenever you do cross that finish line, and you have such a encouraging crowd and people that are just like congratulating you and just uplifting you, like that community of people is kinda what keeps you coming back too, is just like that encouragement from everybody around you.
So there's 2 things based off that I wanna discuss. One was, like, boredom, and I'm glad you talk about because it's not discussed enough, especially with, like, kids. We have kids to raise now, and we have to think, do they always need an iPad? Do they always need a game? Do they always need to be entertained? Or can they just sometimes, like, sit in a car in silence and watch the raindrops fall down and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Or, like, there's a, professional soccer player, his name is Erling Haaland, he's, like, a Viking, and he once made a post that, they had a flight, like, for preseason, a 12-hour flight, 16-hour flight or something like that, and he said he raw dogged it, meaning that
No headphones.
no headphones, no conversation, no book, no sleeping, nothing. He just stared straight for 12 hours like a robot. I'm like, "Listen, respect." He's huge into meditation. His goal celebration is, like, he'll sit crisscross and, like, do the thing with his fingers and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, that's cool that, like, you can practically preach. Maybe start with 5 minutes of meditation and try to build up
Yeah.
to
It's 12 hours of psychopath
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that's crazy. But then, along the lines of what's wrong with being too comfortable, I've seen people before where life gets so easy for them that the smallest inconvenience is the end of the world,
Yes.
and that they are almost more miserable having such a wonderful life. We talk about, like, first world problems. Someone, like, their meat they ask for, like, medium, and they get a medium rare steak, so they send it back to get cooked more or something like that. Just eat the steak, I don't know, but,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think some people are just too focused on comfort, and, like, there's that quote, I'm sure you've heard it, "Comfort is a slow death."
Mhm.
Um, and then as far as, like, training, like, to become more resilient, it's like, the difference between, medicine and poisonous dose. So you actually do have to drink a bit of poison every now and then to become more resilient. But man, like, doing stuff like that just makes you enjoy life more. If you do a difficult thing, first of all, you can survive more and it gives you confidence and it gives you calmness. But then also when you finally get your reward, when you finally get to go home and then, like, be with your wife and have a nice meal and all that stuff, I feel like you can actually truly appreciate it and be grateful for it as opposed to somebody that, they go home and maybe they don't even look at their kids and they're on their phones. They just wanna eat like that I don't know, that slice of pie and all that stuff. I've talked about pie a lot. I don't hate pie. Pie's cool, but yeah, my point is
You
just
make me
like, I feel
hungry.
like yeah, but, yeah, I think people need to find balance in that, but the boredom thing is huge too because I find that a lot of mental health issues I can't speak to this personally, my wife is in mental health. If she wants to have me, like, do an amendment for this episode, I will. But I feel that, like, a lot of it is just people lacking stillness in their minds, always being on their phone, always being stimulated. Kids these days are driven to 4 different sports practices and the clubs, this, that, and it's like, sometimes it's good to just have silence, to drive without music, or, like, for me, it's, closest to meditation I get sometimes. I walk the dog, once or twice a day, 15 to 30 minutes, and then I just won't listen to a podcast, I won't listen to music, just listen to the birds,
Yeah.
like, and that really helps me to feel just, like, reset and just better day to day.
Yeah. Man, I love that. Like, I mean, I'm a huge proponent on getting outside as well, and, like,
Mm,
we have a porch swing, and right now
cool,
my favorite thing to do is just grab my son. It's like we can't keep him outside too long because he's
sure.
such a newborn, and we're kind of in, like, the seasons changing and, like, pollination, so he could get sick because I was sick last week, so, like,
Um,
like, we're kind of in that season, but I do like to just grab him and go sit on that porch swing and just rock back and forth for 10, 15 minutes and just look out in my front yard and just enjoy life, look at him, look there, and just kinda get in my own thoughts a little bit and kinda be bored. Like, I think it's a good meditative thing to do.
so along the lines of, like, finding joy in your kid, this has nothing to do with training, but I think it has to do with health, and at the end of the day, like, technically my title is, like, trainer, strength coach, performance specialist, but I don't care what the title is. I tell people trainer because it's easiest for them to understand, but,
Yeah.
like, my mission is to help people to live better lives, and if that means better sporty performance, cool. If it means losing a few pounds or gaining some muscle or getting strong, cool. But I also feel like it all is connected, the mental, emotional, nutrition, sleep, exercise, all that stuff is connected, and for me, I think, like, happiness comes from purpose, and my purpose has changed totally. I'm sure it's the same for you. As soon as the kid was born, it's like, to me, I just get so much joy out of, like, my favorite time is when my wife and I, our schedules finally align and we're home together at the same time. We get the dog and the stroller, and it's just the 4 of us going for a walk. I'm like,
Yes.
"Dude, I could just do this forever," and, like, sometimes
Love it.
I will watch when I'm crossing the road and all that stuff, but sometimes I just get lost looking at him while I'm pushing the stroller as opposed to, like, looking around and all that, and they always say, like, kids grow up fast. He's not even 3 months yet, he'll be 3 months on the 2nd, and I already see a different kid, and I
Yeah.
just keep telling myself, like, any chance he's looking at me, I feel like a natural instinct to look back, but also like a need to look back in the sense that, "Man, what if I miss just one of those looks?" And then next thing you know, he's, like, up to here,
Yeah.
maybe even taller than me, we'll see. And
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully, but yeah, I mean, it's just like I don't wanna there was one guest on you listen to the Coach Limit podcast, I know because, Tyler's a mutual friend, he said he met you at the conference,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
the guy for Untamed Strength, I forget what his name is, he said something that I loved on that podcast. It feels like when people go on podcasts, especially big ones, they wanna promote themselves and, hustle culture and all that stuff. Almost the opposite. He's like, "Man, I had kids and I realized I was doing way too much work, and the kid didn't choose when to be born," and I thought, "Okay, if I have 18 years of this kid, I'm gonna put a little bit more time there, I can always make more money
Mm.
afterwards." And I just
Yes.
feel like I don't know, I just feel like if you're gonna have a kid, they might as well be your priority, because some people
Yeah.
don't do that and whatever. I'm definitely preaching kind of maybe outside of the scope of this, but I think that does have to do with health, is find your priority. If it's family, then, yeah, give everything for the family, and then I think
Mm.
health has to do with family too. Sorry for this last little rant. I was talking about this with my mother-in-law today when we were walking the stroller, and the baby and all that. She wants to start training with me, and I'm like, "This is great. I would love to do this because I want you to be able to pick him up as long as possible." He went from 8 pounds to 12 pounds. He's probably a little bit more now. Maybe he gets to the 30 pounds. I want you to be able to overhead press 30 pounds and keep going from there.
Yeah.
To be able to get on the ground and play with him, to feel like you have the energy to keep up with him when he's running around. But also from a safety perspective, there's this video, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I feel like as a dad, you have a duty to be able to protect your family. And if you're not physically capable of doing so, then like that should be a reality check. There was a video of a dad who got out of his car, took the stroller out, put the kid in the stroller, forgot to lock the stroller. It was on a slope, starts rolling towards the street with like a bunch of traffic and cars moving. On his first step, he trips and he like just isn't fit enough to get himself off the ground and like chase his kid and save his kid. And it took a stranger from a far distance to like run and save this kid's life, a fit stranger to save his kid's life. And it's just like, to me, that puts in perspective. It's like, okay, you don't have to bench 225, squat 315, and deadlift 405 to be a man. I'm not saying
Mm.
that by any means, but, like, if your kid's in trouble, can you save them? And I think that should be a motivating factor, at least for parents to, you know, run, just do a couple things, watch what they eat a little bit, so and I think your mood will be better too for your kid. If you're feeling terrible physically all the time, I feel like that'll affect your energy around them too, and they deserve a good example to set them up for success in the future, so
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's awesome. I mean, I can't even add I think you said that all perfectly. I love it. I don't wanna go into too much of a rabbit hole of
Sure, sure,
talking
sure, sure,
about the
sure.
kids and the longevity of how important it is to, like, when I first started training, it was for me,
Mhm.
and now it's motivate I mean, my kid's only 4.5 weeks old, like,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not but, like,
He's
it just
fresh.
feels like the motivation has just completely shifted, and it's like, not to push my own brand, but, like, I have my training program called Hard to Kill, and
Mhm.
it's like, now it's like I wanna live a long life so that, like, I can be there for him, it's like, I want myself to be hard to kill so that I can live a long life for him, like, I wanna
Sure.
be around for those things, and I wanna be in my 60s and still able to, like, shoot hoops with him or
Mhm.
whatever sport play golf with him, whatever
Mhm.
sport or event or whatever thing he's doing, I wanna be able to enjoy that with him for as long as possible, so, like, the motivation has definitely shifted.
But, like, along those lines, there's a quote, I like to tell people my goal is to die young, as old as possible. And so
Yeah,
that's just a thing to do with like fitness and all that. Like
I
life
love
expectancy is increasing. Well, I guess it's decreasing, but still it's pretty high. But you see a lot of people are like having really sad like, final years and all that stuff. And it may be a burden for them or for other people. And like, man, like you're talking about, as long as possible, I want to be able to like beat my kid in a race, for example, or
yeah,
that stuff. I think that's just a fun goal to set. But then as far as longevity, you train athletically, and there's this idea of longevity where people are like, "Man, I really gotta take my foot off the gas and just do, like, clamshells and bird dogs for longevity training." And it's like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think everybody can and should train like an athlete. You just have to scale to whatever their entry point is. So,
yes,
like, I have some people that maybe they're doing triple to broad jumps. I have other people that maybe they're doing pogos.
yeah,
That's still power training. That's still training athletically. And if you do pogos and it's too easy, maybe go to forward and backwards over a line or side to side. So you have to like self-organize. Maybe eventually go to doing single leg pogos or something like that. Maybe get into like jump squats where you change the height, you don't have to go super duper high. There's lots of ways to scale it, but I think that, like, we're talking about the benefits of training multiple things. People talk about longevity, it's such a buzzword, right? But to me, it's like, what does it really mean? It means, like, living a good life as long as possible. You lose power twice as fast as you lose strength. It's because people don't use it. I also use this example with my, mother-in-law. We were saying that, like, back in the day, you might get chased by, like, a saber-toothed tiger,
yeah,
like, way
yeah,
back. So I think that, like, losing speed isn't purely biological. It has nothing to do with, like, I think it has everything to do with environment, that there was a purpose where you did have to move fast back then. I feel like now, like, you don't really have to move fast. Like, you can sit in a chair, sit in a car, sit on the couch. People don't train speed nearly as much, but maybe you have to pick up a package, or you have to pick something up, and then you train strength a little bit more naturally.
yeah.
Either way, I think, yeah, performance training is longevity training. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, and moving fast is like fall prevention.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I talk about training athletes a lot, but I
Mhm,
do have a lot of gym pop clients,
mhm,
and, I just one example is I have a lady, she's a little bit older than, like, my mom's age, so she's in, her upper 60s, and now she's very She's very fit for her age, let me just put
mhm,
it that way, and that has nothing to do with me. She worked with trainers and she swam all years before she
mhm,
ever I've been working with her for about 8 years now, but before she got to me, she had never done, like, specific, like, fall prevention I call it fall
mhm,
prevention training.
mhm,
It's like it's nothing, like, super it's just basic strength training. We do a lot of balance work, but we've started incorporating, which she hadn't done, some, like, basic speed training and reactive stuff, and essentially that was, like, if you're falling and for one, your bones and your muscles have to be strong enough to withstand the fall, but
mhm,
also, like, can you put your arm out or stick your leg out quick enough to catch yourself from falling when you
mhm,
trip? Like,
mhm,
that's agility, that's speed, like,
mhm.
and if you're not training that stuff, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, you made a post the other day about the agility ladder and what it's good
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah.
And it's not necessarily to develop speed and agility, but also, like, I use it as movement prep. I commented on it and said I use it as movement prep. I
Mhm,
use it for my 70-year-old lady to
mhm,
develop some low-level plyometrics so that whenever she trips, she can stick that foot out and catch herself,
mhm.
and I use some, like, small 6 to 12-inch box jumps and step offs and, things like that, and I think that, like, just developing, like, longevity-wise, like, it's so what's very rewarding in my field is, like, whenever she tells me she's 70 years old and she's hanging Christmas wreaths up, standing on one leg, reaching up, and she feels super confident in herself and putting that up with Christmas lights around it, and she's like, "I don't know if I could have done that a couple years ago."
Mhm.
Like, that one, like, small encouragement, it's such a big deal to me, and it's like and I told her, I was like, "And if getting off that ladder, if you were to stumble, I'm very confident in the fact that you would not have hurt yourself. Not only if you would have fallen, I don't think you would have. You would have been able to hop right back up and get back on
Mhm.
that ladder and keep working. And that to me, that's a big deal.
So, going along those lines, it's like the ladder hate is sometimes baseless. If someone's making the claim that, like, a ladder gets you super duper fast, and that's a bad thing to say because, like, tap dancers would be the fastest people on the planet if it's all about, like, foot speed and not the direction of force or the actual amplitude of force. right? How much force you put into the ground. If it's just how quickly you can possibly move your feet, then that would be that. And same thing if it's all about force and had nothing to do with direction or actual speed of like switching, for example, in acceleration or cycling when running, sprinting, then like powerlifters would be the fastest people on the planet. So it's a combination. Technique matters as well. There's all sorts of
Yeah,
different things. If that's the claim, then yeah, ladders are trash. But if the claim is like it's just another tool to use for coordination, it can be used to increase body temperature. It can be used for fun. Like, listen, if you like doing something, that's already justification like, in a nutshell, right? But, like,
100%.
yes, what you're saying is actually a really smart way to justify using the ladder, for example, is can you get your foot out quickly? Like, fall prevention can be 3 things on its own. It can be a forward lunge, right, to catch yourself if you, like, start tripping. It can be doing, like, a incline power push-up if you fall going up the stairs, for example, or you
Mhm.
have to use your hands to do some sort of braking, and it can be something like, if you're on the ground, okay, how do you get back up off the ground? And you could do a get
Yeah,
up or I don't love burpees because I think, like, again, it's I don't wanna trash it like the ladders. Burpees are typically done they're an
punishment.
intense exercise. Yeah, they're done as punishment. It's a squat, it's a jump, and it's a push-up, and it's done and it's an intense thing to do, and a lot of people can't do all 3 of those things very well, and then they're done for high volume, and they're done in, like, a punishing way. So
Yeah,
the way they're typically done, not great, but, like, if a wrestler does, like, a sprawl and gets back up and it's similar enough to a burpee, I don't have an issue with it. If it's someone who's doing it for, like, low volume, just learning how to get up off the ground, cool, the way that it's done. Goalkeepers, so, like, I just think that, like, I used to think, "Okay, I read that ladders are bad for speed, ladders are bad." Right? And I just think training is so much more than that. And the more you open your mind and are willing to be wrong and think about the justifications of things, I think that makes you a better trainer. And I also think it means that you can like service more people. I think that's the benefit of being a generalist, both in training and also with who you work with. I think we're both the same in that sense. You
yeah,
can connect through lines as opposed to your specialist. So then you think, man, this is best for my world. It must be best for everybody's world. I think that's kind of the issue with only working with one population, only working with one adaptation in mind.
yeah. So, what would you say, like, what is the demographic of people you typically work with?
Yeah, so I would say 80% Gen Pop, 20% athletes. Athletes are usually high school, a big mix. When I originally started, I wanted to go niche. I don't know if you know who Paul Favorites is on
Mhm.
PJF Performance.
Yeah,
I saw his life and I'm like, all right, so this dude is athletic and he gets to also do some skills coaching. He's got a sick house and he's working with all these high level athletes. I'm like, that's the dream. I'm still not against it. But like when I first started my business, I was like, okay, if I'm working with kids, it's before after school, the windows are limited. So I have to like work with some parents that are stay at home or something like that during the daytime. And man, just after like working with a few Gen Pop clients and seeing the gains that you're talking about, the big wins that you wouldn't think are big wins. Someone's like, "Hey, I put all my socks and shoes on without sitting down or leaning on anything for the first time in like 10 years." I'm like, "Cool, that feels amazing."
yes.
So I just like kind of got hooked on that and thinking everybody deserves good training as long as I said that 3 things are necessary for me to have a successful client relationship. They need the time, they need the money. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of training. I have bills to pay as well. And they need the desire. I also think, like, a bonus would be a good person to work hard. But, like,
Yeah,
those are the 3 main things. And then I'm like, anybody deserves good training. So I'd say now I'm at this long-winded way to say probably 80% Gen Pop, 20% clients. And as far as mobile training, maybe 70% mobile training, 80% mobile training, and then 20% out of the home gym here. But yeah, I mean, like, I wanted to go niche. I ended up going general, just that's ho the direction my business naturally went in, and I am happy with it, and I almost think, like my wife is a therapist, like I mentioned. She originally wanted to work with, like, high school girls, middle school girls, college-age girls, like, young ladies with eating disorders or, like, anxiety, stuff like that, and then her first job was a lot of military people, PTSD and all that. She's like, "This is it. This is my purpose." And then new job with couples, told me that she gets paid more per hour, and I'm like, "Man, that's your purpose." But, like, it's actually such a benefit to, like, explore everything out there before you find a specialty, and sometimes the specialty finds you. Sometimes, like we're talking about, if you're really good at sprinting, you find that out and people realize that, that can happen organically, but I almost recommend if you're a new coach, yes, you can niche yourself. It may be a disservice to you. Work with a bit of everything, so yeah.
Dude, yes, 100%. Like, so for me, first off, I did PJF, the jump training. So back,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
took,
yeah.
like, I tried all the different programs. PJF was one of the jump training programs I actually
Vert
did.
code?
So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Vert Code. Yep, I did the one of the original. I think it was like his first version of the Vert Code.
that's
I
awesome.
still have it in printouts in my weight room at work. But no, I'm just like you. Like, I wanted to start in a niche. Like, I told my story earlier. I wanted to be in sports performance. I
Mhm.
got into sports training programs, started working with athletes. Unfortunately, when it comes to working with athletes, you can only work with them before school and after
Yeah, yeah.
school. which leaves the whole 8 to about 4:30 window of like, I still got to make money. I still got to pay
Sure.
the bills. What am I going to do? I need to train anybody and everybody
Mhm.
to fill my schedule up. And so what's happened is the most people are like your stay-at-home moms and like your retired people. And so I got a lot of reps in with just gen pop clients who, they want to train aesthetically, they want to look a certain way, or they just want a functional life and a
Mhm.
strong life, like the client I talked about earlier who wants to climb her ladder and hang reefs for Christmas. And I think what made me such a better coach in just in general was the so many repetitions and saying yes to everybody early in my career. Now, um, I don't have to do that because I've built a clientele base that has stuck with me for years. I haven't taken on a new client in a very long time. Most of my clients just have been with me for a long time, which is great. My clients are a blessing, dude. Like it's incredible. But I think that having such a wide demographic of people that I've worked with has made me such a better coach
Mhm.
just because, so many people have so many different goals. But my philosophy on how to train them is all the same.
Sure.
It's just the way I put that program or put that prescription out for them is just kind of executed a little bit differently.
The scientific principles behind training don't change. Like, people will sell it like that. Like, I've seen people niche a little bit too hard. I don't wanna go down the rabbit hole, but I've seen some really crazy stuff. And then
Yeah.
some people will just, as a sales tactic as well, try to, like, refute good basic scientific principles of training and say, "Oh, no, it's all about your fascia, or it's all about your lymphatic system," or something like that, just create some nonsense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, there's that. The other thing too is, when I originally thought I wanna work with athletes, my first internship was in Cincinnati for Clay Mefford, who has a kind of similar job to what you have right now, where he does performance training through a hospital and all that, but he was great, and so it was a lot of, like, D1 bound high school athletes who didn't need a ton of coaching, and I didn't feel like I was getting better at coaching, just saying, "Do your throws, do your jumps, do your lifts," and then they would just
Yeah.
go crush it on their own, they don't need that much coaching, and then there's this one kid, like, I love this story, kinda 2 things kinda lit my fire. There's this one kid who was a middle schooler, husky kid, best attitude I've ever seen about training, and, like, it was his first time ever working out, and I was helping him with, like, incline push-ups with a bar and a rack pretty darn high up, and this kid's going to, like, true failure on everything, shaking, and he's like, "I think I got one more," and just everything, like, everything you could possibly dream of, and I was like, "Okay, this kid is coachable, and he's a good kid, and, like, think about what this will do for his life if he can, like, improve his," like you're talking about, improve his confidence, improve his strength,
Mhm.
his physical capabilities, all that stuff. I was like, "Man, this is empowering," right? And I'm like, that just, like, lit my fire so much. The other thing you're talking about, like, stay-at-home moms, is, like, that very much is a big part of my business is, retired folks and stay-at-home moms or, like, parents that, like, have, flexible schedules, that kinda stuff. And I just get a kick out of showing women too that they don't need just Pilates or 2-pound dumbbells, that they can get after it, and when they feel capable, like, I've seen, like, a lot of my female clients sometimes get, like, watery eyes when they lift weight that they thought would have been impossible for them at one point in time, and it's just that's so, so rewarding. I recommend people, to me, like, work should be about what your mission is. My mission is just to tell people, "Hey, you can do it." I feel like, again, this is another rant, I don't wanna go down. I've heard a lot of doctors recently that, like, will tell people, "Oh, that hurts, just don't do that anymore." And so, like, I had a client recently who, she started doing, cardio kickboxing, and she came in after a cardio kickboxing session, and she, like, looked upset because she was hurt, and she's like, "Sorry, like, I hurt myself at kickboxing, it's gonna mess with our workout. I'm not mad at you." She's like, "My back hurts, my hip hurts. Should I stop boxing?" I was like, "Do you like it?" She's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Don't stop kickboxing.
Yes.
We're just same thing we talked about capacity, just dial it back. Maybe don't kick as hard, maybe don't kick as high, maybe don't kick as much, right? And then we're just gonna build up the capacity in the hips and the back, all these different things to tolerate the stresses. And then, yeah, I want you doing as much as you can tolerate, safely and respond positively to. But I want to respect your time. Do you have time for just a couple quick fire
Oh, yeah, yeah,
questions?
yeah. Man, I got all the time in the world, man. So whenever you're good.
So let's see. What is something that you changed your mind on recently or during your career that you want to share? Like a big change of mind?
I think the biggest one for me is obviously multiple modes of training can coexist.
Mhm.
But as far as like training people, I just want to get people strong. When it comes to getting in the weight room, like I don't care about specific movements. I don't care about I like training for a stimulus, I guess,
Mhm.
and getting people strong. Like those are really like the priorities or the primary reasons for what I do and for my exercise selection. So it's like finding out what they like, what they don't like, and then just get them strong in those motions. So like if it has to do with them being strong for something in life, it's like so I like a lot of like clients who enjoy hunting, so it's like I want to make sure that they have the endurance and the strength to hike up and down mountains when they're hunting,
Mhm.
wild game or whatever. So I think that for me it's just I've changed my mind on instead of like for that hiking example, that hunting example, instead of putting a loaded backpack on and make him do a stair stepper or carry something that looks like a gun, like making like all these specific, it's like, let's just freaking get your legs strong and let's just get your conditioning up. So like sled pushes are a great example that can kill two birds with one stone there.
Right.
And just get like, and then for my athletes, just getting them super strong. Like we talked about building the capacity for the human and not worrying about if the box jump looks like an approach jump for a volleyball
Mhm.
player or whatever. Let's just freaking get their legs super explosive and super strong, and just build because what my job is and develop skill for their sport. My job is to make sure that they have a resilient body to withstand the stressors
100.
at their sport. So my mind has shifted and the way I've programmed has shifted. I used to have like super complex training programs for all my athletes and my people, like super individualized every single thing, which everything is technically individualized,
Mhm.
but it's not as complex as you might think. It's
Mhm.
all like super simple concepts, and we're really just trying to get everybody strong. What's the stimulus I can create that you enjoy that I can get you super strong at? Because if you enjoy coming in to bench press every single Monday, then we're gonna friggin' bench press every single Monday because you like it. Like
Mhm.
that's pretty much it.
I think that's the mark of a good coach is, like, understanding that principle on its own. I think that's someone who has experience because when you first start, you wanna prove to everybody how smart you are, so you do all the fancy stuff. You try
Yeah,
to explain, over explain this, that, the other, and it's like, do they care? No. Do they like this? Yes. Is it gonna get them where they need to go? Yes. Are they gonna train hard? Then that's another thing too is, like, I tell people, like, "If you don't like something, tell me, and we'll find something they do like instead, or at least
yeah.
like better. If you don't like everything, then sayonara." But like, we gotta find something that you are what's the least hated thing? With some
Yeah,
clients who are just like, "I don't like training." It's like, "Okay, what's the least hated thing?" "This?" "Okay, cool." But yeah, it's truly at the end of the day about an adaptation. That was something that took me a long time to learn. It's like, what is the most specific joint angle and approach in this, that, like you're talking about?
oh,
And it's like, I think special exercises are for special athletes. I don't train special athletes. I'm not saying that, they're not special like that, but it's like, I'm not training, like I said, Usain Bolt, who needs like maybe a fraction of a second to get first or to get last and
yeah,
race against the other people doing every last possible thing they can to be the best in the world. Otherwise, it's general physical preparation for general athletes. And I
yes.
think that's just a common way to think about it. Yeah, you're talking about do a box jump to get power in the legs, and then your sport coach should be able to teach someone how to play the sport properly, right?
100%.
So that's you're
Yeah.
not overreaching in that sense.
Most of my athletes too, they haven't even reached their peak yet. Like
Sure.
I'm with junior high and high school athletes. Like I'm just trying to just build a super strong athlete. Like they're not even in their peak yet, where like all that stuff even matters. Like when we're trying to like dig into like all these like minor things.
Mhm.
I think it's I don't know if you listen to Coach 'em Up podcast, but Tim Riley
Yeah, yeah,
always says
yeah.
majoring in the minors.
Yeah, of course.
Like if we're really digging into like joint angles and like slow motion videos to like refine all these different like I used to do that stuff and it was
Yeah.
like holy cow, we're wasting so much time in a
Sure.
training session trying to like dig into this slow motion video of you doing an approach jump and I was like you're a 14-year-old girl, like let's just freaking get strong. Like let's stop worrying about all these little things. I mean, obviously there's things you do need to worry about and I don't want to make it sound like I don't care about those things,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but, like, taking a step back and, like, what's the real priority and what's the real goal of this training session? And it's like, I just need to make so and so athlete I need to make Jane stronger. I need to make her have the capacity to be able to jump higher, and that's essentially all it is.
So I'm glad that you say that because that's another thing that people don't understand is like the priority of the adaptation and the method and technique and all that stuff. You might have someone who's super overweight that can't do a bodyweight exercise the best, and if they lost a little bit of weight, they would perform that exercise with better technique. And so it's like, okay, well, we have to get a stimulus, and it doesn't have to be absolutely every little detail has to be perfect and all that stuff. You just gotta get the person going in the right direction. Um, that was another thing was like I used to think if someone has bad technique, it's a bad reflection on me as a coach. But it's like you're not gonna get someone from an F to an A in one workout. Don't
Mm,
overcoach. Get that F to a D minus, get the D minus to a D, get the D to a D plus, work it all the way up to an A over time. But
I
like
love that.
just give them one thing to focus on at a time. You're not gonna have perfect athletes right off the bat. But then as far as like the 14-year-old girl, for example, if you wanted her to like be able to jump higher or cut harder, and maybe she's lacking mobility or strength or power to be able to do that skill that you're asking her to do, what's the point of doing something super specific if she literally can't do the thing you're asking her to do because her body's not strong enough to do that thing? So
Exactly.
that's always the foundation. Going in a different direction, is there a major misconception about training that you wish to dispel? I want to keep it more endurance based if you're okay with that. What is a misconception around endurance training that you wish to dispel?
Ooh, I think a misconception with endurance training is that you have again, like this is kind of goes back like you have to take out all your strength training session. I think that stuff matters for one for
Uh-huh.
injury prevention, but also like the programming, I think. So let me take a step back. So you can for one, 100% you can incorporate both strength and endurance training. So like that's a big misconception. Like you're
Mhm.
not going to lose your endurance gains, so to speak, by strength training. You're the hardest part about incorporating both is finding the time to do
Right.
both. But you can definitely train both at the same time. It's just a matter of how much time are you willing to put. So a lot of
Mhm.
times when people ask me like if I want to start doing things like this or if I want to do like what you're doing, what's your number one advice or whatever? I'm like, how much time do you have to dedicate towards that? Like before I had a child, I had a lot more time. And right now it's like readjusting my schedule to figure out when and where I can find time
Mhm.
to train that way because I enjoy it so much, I don't want to completely cut it out, but it's figuring out where can I find that time. So the misconception would be like you can do them both as long as you have the time for that. But I will say too much the programming does not have to be perfect. A lot of times there's too much like emphasis on like the perfect program or and whether that's the perfect hybrid program or the
Mhm.
perfect endurance or running program, like really it's just like you've got to train consistently and train freaking hard, and that's
Right.
about it. And so I would say like the most biggest misconception is the programming has to be perfect because there isn't a perfect program. And
Mhm.
I'm continually editing how I program for myself. So it's never going to be perfect.
So going along that, there's kind of 2 things I'd say. One is a mid program done with, like, immense effort and intent and consistency beats the perfect program done,
A
like, in
hundred
a
percent.
mediocre fashion. I think people keep losing that. They keep saying it's like, "Oh, man, I'm not seeing the results I wanna see because my program's not good enough." And it's like, "Alright, take your okay program. How well are you running that program yourself?" Like, that should be the first question you ask yourself.
Yes.
If you're running that program perfectly, then yeah, maybe the program isn't designed the best. If you're not giving your best effort there, then why are we always looking for the next thing? It's almost like, I had a guy, on my podcast, Ishan Heva, he's a good friend. He was saying that he worked in a supplement store, like a GNC, and saw people coming in drinking like a McFlurry or something like that to buy fat burning like supplement. And it's like, dude, like take care of the big rocks. Like this supplement's gonna make such a minor difference compared to you having a McFlurry.
Yes.
Uh, so that's one thing. And then the other thing is as far as like people sharing their programs and knowledge, I think that's become more common with social media and all that stuff is like, I get to
Yeah.
see what you're doing, you might be able to see what I'm doing. Big coaches, there's less gatekeeping in all that sense. I think there's value in that too because, like, an amazing coach with, again, like, not the best weight room, not the best whatever, will get better results than you give the best program ever. You sell that program, template, everything to a beginner coach who doesn't know what he's doing yet. He won't coach it as well as somebody else who just
Mhm.
says, we'll do a powerlifting split with a little bit of, like, plyos and sprinting. That amazing coach will do more with it. So I think it's that idea of, like, you may have the same recipe, but the sauce won't taste the same.
Yes.
There's an art to coaching. I wish people would understand that it's not just like, you get your whistle or your timer, your stopwatch, your clipboard, and you just say up and down, 3 by 10, good, get out of here. Like, there is
Yeah.
actually skill to coaching. We know what we're doing, or at least we try to, and if we
Yeah.
don't, we figure it out.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you as well, what is a positive change you're noticing in the health and fitness space?
Man, I think the biggest thing so for one, I'm very new to like posting content. So I'm
Mhm,
also very new to like engaging in other coaches' content as much as I have been lately. So for one, I think the awareness of just like the importance of strength and strength training in general, strength training for every population, strength training for women, strength training for the elderly, strength training
mhm,
for everybody. I think that's a huge one. And then also just like the quality of free content out there. Podcasts like yours, podcasts like the Coach 'em Up podcast. There's multiple. Just Fly Performance is a great
mhm,
one. I mean, so many different. I mean, those are just a couple that I listen to, but like, I listen to a bunch of podcasts. There's so many great YouTube channels and coaches that put out content on the social media platforms as long as you as well as YouTube. Obviously, it takes a little deciphering on what the high quality versus low quality content is, and I'm not meaning like resolution. I'm meaning like the actual information you're
for
getting from those coaches. But I think, but I do know, and I think that there's getting much better. We're getting much better at getting high quality content out there for free because for so long the lower quality content was the free content and the higher
yeah,
quality you had to pay for.
Mhm.
And now it's, we're getting some really, really high quality stuff from great coaches on a regular basis for little to no cost at all out on
Mhm.
social media, YouTube, podcasts, all those things.
And I think stuff like this makes everybody better in the sense that, like, maybe somebody is listening to this podcast and they're learning a lot. But I also think that, like, I feel like I'm becoming a better coach learning off you. Maybe you'd feel the same way towards me. I think it raises the floor. We're all competitors, so we have to get our game better too
Yeah.
if we wanna separate ourselves. But I just think, like, what is it? Iron sharpens iron. I feel like we're all just better off doing this as opposed to, like, gatekeeping, and then we think we have the secret sauce, and maybe it's not as good as we think, and I don't know, I just feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of value to this, but then on a personal level, like, I like this because, like I told you, it's like making the friends and all that stuff. I used to, in a small town, be a little bit jaded, where it's like, first of all, I would see all the great coaches on Instagram when I was a young coach, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not their level, so I must not be very good, but maybe I'm better than the local trainer at the YMCA or Gold's Gym, no disrespect to them." And you don't know because 'cause you're in this bubble. This has been nice to see that there are more good coaches and good people that don't necessarily have big platforms out there. It's
Yeah.
made me kind of more hopeful, more open-minded and all that stuff, and, feel better about the training space as a whole because you just see your seedmans, and then you'd see your good coaches, and it's like, man, like, it just kinda distorts reality in that sense.
Yeah, and for me, like, people like you and people like-minded people like us, we have a passion for this industry, and when you see the poor content and the poor information being put out there that kinda puts a bad taste in your mouth on what this industry is actually about. It's like being able to get on a podcast like this or being able to post on a regular basis with like what I view as high quality content. Like I have a passion for this and I don't want this industry to get watered down with bad advice and
Mhm.
bad information that I don't agree with. So if I can like and comment and be engaged with all this higher quality stuff, I want that stuff to be out there sharing the
Sure.
coaches information that I follow and agree with. Like I want to share that stuff. I want to get that stuff out as much as possible because I want not just my clients to know the information I have for them, but I want everybody I can reach out to, my however many followers, which is not very many, but I want
Mhm.
those people to get the same content that I'm getting because I know it's so important for them to know. And I don't want them to get flooded with the bad stuff.
And then what you're talking about as far as followers is concerned, that also gets into width versus depth. And I think it's better to touch a few people deeply. I don't know why that sounds weird, but like in that sense, but like you can have a big impact on a few people. I feel like matters
Sure.
more than you just gave one piece of advice that's like, oh, that's kind of cool to a bunch of people, but it ultimately doesn't have a huge impact. Of
Yeah.
course, the ultimate goal is to have width and depth. But if you had to pick one or the other, there have been some people too, just from a business model, they might have a successful online coaching business with maybe a couple thousand followers as opposed to you have 1,000,000 followers and no one buys your stuff because it's no good, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, I was gonna ask as well, uh, okay, the final 2 things, if you could give any piece of advice to anybody about absolutely anything, what would it be?
Man, I love so Chris Paul was on Rich Roll's podcast
Uh,
and he always says keep stacking days and I love saying that. I love the laying bricks, but I would say just keep stacking days. Like, if you have a goal in mind, for myself, I guess and I speak that from a personal testimony standpoint. Like I
mhm,
said, I've been doing this for 16 years and I just continue to show up. I continue to put in consistent hard work and it's not like I have any like incredible accolades behind my name, but it's like I can continue to show up and I can
mhm,
continue to perform on a decent level to where, it's like I don't struggle with a lot of injuries. I'm able to perform on a regular basis. I have these crazy goals in mind as far as like from a performance standpoint, as far as like I just think stacking days applies to so many different aspects and not
mhm,
just like your personal training, not just your life outside of training, but also like in your career as well. You show up with a good attitude, you're going to gain clients. People are going to recognize you for being genuine and being authentic and knowing what you're talking about. Same with like your training. You show up on a regular basis, you stack days, you're going to continue to actually see progress in your training. So, if I were just to give anybody advice, I would say stack days, one, and then two, make sure you're engaging in good quality content. Like
mhm.
experiment on yourself, learn from people, read books, listen to podcasts like this. Make sure you're getting uncomfortable on a regular basis. Just to test yourself. So I think just train hard all the time and use yourself as like your guinea pig as far as training goes.
So there's 2 things I wanna say to that, the stacking days thing and then also like consuming content and like educating yourself. As far as the first one, it's almost like the difference between an overnight success and 15 minutes of fame is staying power, and that's what you're talking about. If you stack enough bricks, like overnight success is actually like you get discovered, but it's not like out of nowhere. You had 16 years of work and all that stuff, and it's
Mhm.
just like the tipping point, right? 15 minutes of fame is like the Hawk Tuah girl, and then she goes
Yeah.
back into obscurity. She just had one thing that's popular, and then people don't care because there's no substance underneath it. No shade to her. Actually, maybe shade. She did some sketchy stuff, but
Yeah.
but but then along the lines of sorry, the second thing you're talking about educating. What you said was good because you said guinea pig. That means doing. And I think that so many people will worry about feeling like they're getting stuff done without actually doing stuff. So like, all right, if I take supplements or I sign up for a coach, but then I still eat like trash and I don't train very hard, then like I feel like I'm being healthy, but I'm actually doing anything. You can read a book and then never apply the knowledge and you don't actually know anything from that book. And one of my favorite quotes is knowledge without application isn't knowledge. To know and not to do is not to know. You
Mm,
got to do the thing. Like that's the only way you can truly understand
that's it.
something. So I'm glad that you talk about the doing because everybody thinks or like tries to act like they're some great thinker. I watched a video, I have it all figured out. It's like, yeah, but how are you implementing it into your life? Are you not? I don't know if you actually know that well, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that I've learned obviously from repetitions, I've learned so much by just using myself as a guinea pig.
Mhm.
Like I said, I get all this content, I listen to all these podcasts, but, like, I don't really know how to apply any of that stuff until I apply it to myself and
Mhm.
just see what that stimulus actually creates, and
Mhm.
so, yeah, just never stop training. If training is a passion for you and this is a training podcast, like, never stop training yourself hard because you're gonna
Mhm.
learn so much about yourself in those moments, and then never stop experimenting on yourself because if you're using yourself as a guinea pig, you'll learn, if you're putting yourself in the fire, you'll know what your clients and your athletes are going through when you're telling them to do this stuff. Like, if you're putting a program on that you've never done, then you
Sure.
don't know what they're going through, so it's hard to actually relate to them and know what the complaints they're talking about are actually going on or whatever. So,
So
yeah.
yeah, the program thing is huge. Super quick rabbit hole. Jake Tura actually did the workouts. He would show himself like just going to the gym and doing hypertrophy cluster, doing the full workout and all that stuff. I'm like, that makes a big difference knowing that the coach actually did the program before
Yeah.
selling it, that he morally should feel better than somebody who just writes whatever he thinks is like flashy or trendy or cool or tough.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely value to that too. This has been an absolute blast. I just wanted you, if you can plug yourself real quick before signing off, where can people find you, find your program, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so, I'm on Instagram mainly. I just started TikTok a little bit, like, a few months ago, but Instagram, Hunter_Saffel. If you wanna train with me, I have programs on Train Heroic. They're called Hard to Kill. You can look at that through the link in my bio on Instagram, and then you can search me on TikTok. I'm Hunter Saffel on TikTok as well. Yeah, but that's where pretty much where I post all my content, and then I've got those programs on Train Heroic.
Dude, thank you so much for your time. This was a blast. I wish you continued success. And again, congrats on the little one.
Man, I appreciate you so much. This has been awesome. This has
Yeah,
been
cool.
a really fun experience. I'm really fun getting to know you too. So I appreciate you having me on.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yep.